have you here today. I would like to shortly, briefly introduce, however I can, Dr. Yamina. I can only, of course, introduce her through my own lenses. When I have met her, it was in 2003 in Istanbul. No, in Bloomington first. I knew her before. We were both grad students at Indiana University, Bloomington, Indiana. Of course, this was long after I met her through her writings in Istanbul around 1991. Especially one of her writings, it was a book about science and Islam, how we compromise science and Islam. And I remember those days, it was my first year at college. I was in physics department. And that was like my handbook. I carried all around. I always had an extra copy because anytime we had a conversation, I would just lend the extra copy to someone who was interested. I remember at least giving out 10 copies of the same book. And then we met in a conference in Istanbul, an international conference on Nursi in 1992. And that time, the first time I listened to her actually giving a lecture. She was born and raised in Algeria, studied quantum physics in Durham University in England. Her life journey includes a blend of cultures, multitude strands of education, and complementing perspectives. After completing her PhD in quantum physics in England, she lived in Turkey for more than a decade before moving to the United States. By then, her interest had shifted from the world of physics to the vaster and much more mysterious inner world of the self. This interest led her to encounter Islamic spirituality and to discover the healing wisdom of the Qur'an. Meanwhile, she has also received intensive training in Islamic studies. She has taught Arabic and Islamic studies in various universities in the US. In addition to English, she is also fluent in Arabic, French, and Turkish. She loves to teach and share with others the Quranic wisdom that has enlightened and healed her soul. Yamina is most known to her students and friends as a compassionate mentor. Her lifelong mission is to align her spirit, heart, mind, and reason, such as to attain fulfillment and peace through the grace of the All-Merciful. She loves to share this process of aligning and opening to receiving divine light with others. She has been holding study circles on the spiritual application of the Qur'an in daily life for decades in various places, including England, Turkey, United States, and online. She has been offering extensive spiritual counseling and coaching and offering retreats and workshops. Always receiving Nur is a fruit of her calling in life. And for more information, you can check the website alwaysreceivingnur.com. So please help me to welcome her.
Thank you, Zuleika. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum.
I think I should just one more announcement for the recording, right? We are hopefully we will make it available through YouTube and two recordings. Just so you know. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum again. Peace be upon you. So my first question is, have you ever thought about these questions? Who am I? What am I doing here on earth? Where did I come from? Is it possible to make meaningful connections with others, or are we all fundamentally alone? Is it possible to make sense of life, especially in the face of inevitable death? And questions like this. And probably you all heard that these kind of questions are called existential questions. And from my own perspective, they are existential, they are related to my own existence because they are not abstract or mental questions. They are not questions I'd ask out of mere curiosity. And they are not questions that you learn, and they are questions that I may not even be aware that I'm asking the question, but actually I'm asking them without even articulating them. It's questions that we live. We feel them. And why we ask these questions? Because the answers matter, because we need the answers to live a stable life. Otherwise, our sense of purpose, we build usually our life towards a goal, towards a purpose. And I'm not talking about my purpose in life or something. It could be just a short-term purpose. If I don't have answers to these questions, my purpose remains, the sense of meaning in life and purpose remains fragile. And whenever something happens that reminds me that I don't have the answers to these questions, I very easily can enter a state of crisis, a state of panic, fear. And usually we call these kinds of events, these kinds of interrupting events, such as a serious accident, losing someone who is very close to us, someone we love, like a mother losing a child, a serious illness or something like that. We call them traumatic events. And why are they traumatic? Because suddenly the barrier of the known or seemingly known routine, because it's a routine, I don't question it, and it seems like it's under control. Suddenly, when it's broken, then all the questions come in like a flood. And that's what we call shock, panic. So just like the body needs water and food, something in us, I could say spirit, I could say ruh, but it doesn't matter what we name it, something in us needs to know the answer to these existential questions. But how can I access the answers? Because think about it, how did I come from? Who am I? I mean, it needs a knowledge that is far beyond what I can have access to. It needs a knowledge that has no limit, a knowledge of the future and the past, a knowledge that can encompass pretty much everything in space and time. This is what the Qur'an claims to be, the eternal speech of a being whose knowledge encompasses all things, including space and time. It claims to be a guide to the answers of such fundamental existential questions for those who are really ready to take the journey of seeking the answers. And be careful, I'm not saying it has the answers. No, it's only a guide to the answers, and not for everyone, for those of us who are genuinely seeking the answers. Because the answer is not give you a page with A, B, C, D, here is the list of answers. Just like we live the questions, the answers are also lived. And it takes a whole journey, a whole life to get the answers. The Quran claims to be the guide, the map to this journey. In the Quran it says, this is Mulk from Surah 67, is it possible that he who has created all should not know all? Indeed, he alone is unfathomable in his wisdom, all aware. And in Surah 25, in Furqan, it says, he who has created the heavens and the earth and all that is between them in 6 aeons and is established on the throne of his almightiness, the most merciful. Ask then God himself, the one who is truly aware and knows all. So it says, practically saying, since God has created everything, then he alone knows everything. So if you want to know anything, just go and ask him directly. It says, Ar-Rahman, fas'al bihi khabira. The most merciful, ask then God himself, the one who knows. So if we have any questions, it says just go and ask God. And how does God answer our questions? Through speech. That's the easiest way, right? That's the way we understand. Speaking, through speech. And so just like he has created us with hunger and the need for provision for food and sustenance, and at the same time he has created, or he provides us with the sustenance, he has created us with the need for answers with this question. This question is like hunger. It's a curiosity. It's a need for questions. And he has provided the answers, or the hint to the answers, the guide to the answers. And the Qur'an says that the Maker, the Creator, speaks. He has spoken, and he is still speaking. And how? He has spoken with words. That's what we call scriptures. But he always speaks and is speaking right now through creation. He speaks through signs, or what the Quran calls ayat. And so ayah is usually translated as sign. He speaks through the signs of the Quran and through the signs of the world, the universe, the cosmos. So what we usually translate as verse of the Quran is not verse according to the Quran. Each unit of the Quran is called ayah, sign. And anything that happens in the universe is also called sign, ayah. It's the same word. And there is a word in Arabic for verse, but it is not used for the units of the Quran. So actually when we say Quranic verse, the Quran doesn't talk about Quranic verses. It talks about Quranic signs. A commentator on the Quran, that is Yamina Said Nursi, explains that the cosmos, with all its activities, is a kind of speech. So he says, just like the Quran, you can see the Quran as a text that you read, but that's not how it functions in the Islamic tradition. It's actually more something that you listen to, something that you learn, you recite, and you listen to. And Quran means recitation. And in the same way, creation, the fact that there is this activity, is a kind of speech. So every being, every event is like a word, and the fact that there is constant activity and change and renewal, that makes it into speech. There is a verse in the Quran that says, they will reply, God, who gives speech to all things, has given speech to us. So everything will say, it's talking about the skin and stuff, but it's saying, God, who gives speech to all things. So the Quran is saying, everything speaks. Their own way, of course, but they speak. So in other words, just like the Quran is the verbal speech, through words, that's what it means, verbal, the cosmos or the universe is God's speech through act, through creation. And the Quran is understood as a map or as an interpreter of the speech going on in the cosmos. Think about it as a movie. If you have a movie and we can see the screen, we can see the pictures, and there is only you hear only the sound, how much can we make sense of the movie? Especially, I mean, a movie that is supposed to be watched with pictures and sounds, not like a Charlie Chaplin where it's only pictures. because that's why they exaggerate the actions, because there is no sound and they want us to understand what's going on. So imagine a movie right now. You have no pictures and you just listen to what's going on. You get something, but it's not clear. And now imagine we can see the pictures, but there is no sound on. That's how the Qur'an, the verbal Qur'an and the cosmic Qur'an, and lots of Muslim scholars called the universe, called the cosmos, the cosmic Qur'an, and the signs out there, because that's how the Qur'an calls everything out there, whether it's a phenomena or an event or a being, it calls them all signs. They call them the creational signs. So there are the Quranic signs, the units of the Qur'an, and the creational signs, everything that's going on out there. So the Qur'an is the word of God. It's called the Kalamullah among Muslim commentators on the Quran. And the cosmos is the act of God, the creational Quran. And with the verbal Quran, both Qurans are united. They are related. It points to the correlation between the two, because one is talking about the meaning of the other one. For instance, God speaks as He creates food, since we talked about food, and gifts of sustenance. Think about fruits, for instance. So they are, not only they taste good, but they look good. They have all these different kinds of colors. You know, when you see them, sometimes even if you don't want to eat it, you just want to buy them and just put them there because they look good. They smell good. So all this art, all this beauty, all these colors, all this, and when we eat them, the taste and the enjoyment and the pleasure and everything, this is how He creates. At the very same time, the Quran says that God is generous, He's merciful, He's compassionate, He's the sustainer, He's the provider. Would I understand what provider means if I were not provided for? Would I understand what the beautiful is if there was no beauty out there? So it's saying it's like both of them are speeches or kind of language, and one is, the Quran is interpreting the cosmic signs language. At the same time, the cosmic signs are also making sense of what the Quran is saying, otherwise it wouldn't make sense. And this is true for every language, actually. When we talk, what I'm using now, I'm using signs. Each word is a sign. If I say water, or let's say coffee, you all understand because you had some experience with coffee. So coffee is a sign. A sign means that it points to something beyond itself. So when I say coffee, it only makes sense to me to the extent that I smelled it, saw it, tasted it. Otherwise, say coffee, if I had never seen coffee, it wouldn't mean anything. So a sign, that's how language refers to something out there in the world. So the Quran is saying that real coffee out there in the world is also a sign. It refers to something beyond itself, to something else. And of course, only to the extent that I experience that something else, what the Quran is saying is going to make sense to me. Otherwise, it would be like coffee. I don't know what, probably coffee is coffee in pretty much every language, but if it was a word in Chinese, that because I don't understand Chinese, it could be something that I knew, but because I don't know what it is referring to, I have to wait for someone to explain it to me. So the word becomes meaningful when I understand what it is relating to, what it is indicating, what it is signifying. And so it is with the signs of the God. And And in the Quran, there are lots of verses, but one example, for instance, is in Surah Abasa, Surah 80. It says, "Let human consider the source of his food, how it is that we pour down water, pouring it down abundantly, and then we cleave the earth with new growth, cleaving it asunder, and thereupon we cause grain to grow out of it, and vines and edible plants, and olive trees and date palms, and garden dense with foliage, and fruits and herbage for you and for your animals to enjoy." So this way, the creation of food, the way food comes into being, is made to speak through the Quran. It is being interpreted for me through the Quran. Saying, look at the food, reflect, it was He, God, the Creator, who gave it to you, so be grateful. At the same time, the meaning of this verse, this sign of the Quran, unfolds when? Can I just read this verse again and again and memorize it and then say I read the Quran? Will it have unfolded into me? Can I say that I read the Quran, now I understand? Of course I can say there are degrees of understanding. I understand what it means. However, I will only understand really and live what it's telling me when I actually do what it is asking me to do. When I go and actually take the food in front of me, and maybe I will have to go out and look how rain comes and how food grows and interact with it and feel it, because it's not something that I can know only mentally and rationally. It's something that food is something that I enjoy, something that I feel, something taste. And that taste, I can explain it to you with as many words as possible. Unless you tasted it yourself, it's not going to make sense. And so it is for this as well. So you remember we said the questions are existential because, or in the sense that they are lived. The answer also are really answers to the extent that they are lived. Just because I learned the answer by heart does not mean that it is my answer. And in the situation of crisis, whoever I am, whatever I am, will come out, not what I learned. Just because I learned that it's good to be calm, it doesn't make me calm when something happens, if it's not my way of being. So the answer is a mode of being, is a way of being. And that comes after it's the result of that reflection. It's a guided reflection. Quran teaches how to reflect on the sun. We'll talk more about it. And so the answers are not theoretical answers, because the heart also needs its answers. The imagination, the feelings, all of them. Just because if I tell you, forget about this, just about coffee. If someone had never seen coffee before, how would you tell him about coffee? We would have to say it is liquid. Still we are referring to something. It is something like tea, but with a different flavor. Unless this person has a sense of taste and won't know what flavor is. We are always going to compare it to something that the person will have to have lived. So when we say signs, we mean language, we mean experience. Unless we go back to experience, the signs don't mean much. Even like the signs of our language, we take it so much for granted that we don't think about it, but we only have meaningful conversation because we are referring back to what we share or what we assume we share. Because when we say coffee, all of us have different thoughts and feelings about it, but we still share something about it. So with what we share, we can build meaningful communication. So here also, the unit of the Quran, the verses, the so-called verses, the signs of the Quran, and everything out in the world are related. Namely, here it's in this particular verse, it's the divine creativity and care for people for their enjoyment. It says at the end, all this is for your enjoyment. So you stop and never thought that food was for I enjoy it, but I never thought that someone readied it and put it in front of me, created it for me to enjoy. So it takes it a step forward beyond the food, beyond the enjoyment itself. The food and the enjoyment become signs referring to something else. And here, divine creativity, for instance. And the Quran does not talk only about food. It talks so much about everything in the cosmos. And the word sign is mentioned 382 times in the Quran. And most of them are about the cosmic signs, not the signs, the Quranic units. So it mentions water and rain 63 times. The sky 310 times, the earth 451 times, and the sea 39 times, the sun 33 times, the mountains 33 times, trees 27 times. It talks about ants and bees and birds and so on. And when it talks about water and trees and mountains and everything, it doesn't talk about them for their own sake. Remember, a sign. A sign to what? A sign to, it talks about them as being gifts, blessings. A sign of a source of gift, a source of blessing. Quran. I mean, it's very, Burhan was saying he's very excited about learning about the Quran. I said, I've been learning reading the Quran for a long time. I'm still excited because, I mean, it's one thing to have a gift and a blessing. It's another to learn about the endless source. That's very, very exciting. If I know where the source is, it changes everything. It changes how I look at the world. And so, the fact that they are signs to the source, they are also the signs indicating that they are coming from a source of generosity, a source of abundance, a source of compassion, a source of caring. And though all this is very important to us, it reminds us to be grateful to the owner of those attributes. And that's why in 5 times a day when we pray, we say, all praise be to God alone. Alhamdulillah means praise be to God alone. In Surah number 2, there is a verse, it says, verily in the creation, and in the creation, in the Arabic is fi khalqi. Khalq is masdar, is the ing form. Like in the process of creation, in the way, so it's not static. It's like the way they are created of the heavens and the earth, and the succession of night and day, and in the ships that speed through the sea with what is useful to people, and in the waters which God sends down from the sky, giving life thereby to the earth after it had been lifeless. There are indeed signs for people who reflect. There are lots of these, but I'm going to mention another one, and for a reason. The other one is in Surah Al-Jathiyah, Surah number 45, and it says, the bestowal from on high of this divine script, and I will ask you at the end what this divine script is, so listen accordingly. So it's saying the bestowal from on high of this divine script issued from God, the Almighty, the Wise. Behold, in the heavens as well as on earth, there are indeed signs for all who are willing to believe, and in the succession of night and day, and in the means of subsistence which God sends down from the skies, that is the rain, giving life thereby to the earth after it had been lifeless, and in the change of the winds. In all this, there are signs for people who use their reasons. These signs of God we convey unto you, setting forth the truth. In what other tidings, if not in God's signs, will they then believe? Remember here, the word sign is the word ayah. For Muslims who take things for granted, ayah means a unit of the Qur'an. So what is the script here? Issued from God.
The signs of the universe. That's the script. That's
Here it's talking about the signs of the universe. Lots of classical scholars will say the script always is taken as meaning the Qur'an. But if I take it as meaning the Qur'an, then it becomes, why is it then suddenly talking about the heavens and the earth? And it's probably talking about both. Both, because they are, you can't have one without the other. Language wouldn't exist without, the term coffee doesn't make sense without the physical coffee that I drink. If there were no coffee in existence, there would be no word for it, and vice versa. And so it is here. So the root, the scripture here, is both. The first is, you say, the signs. It's talking about the heavens, the earth, the mountains, the winds, the day and night. Okay? But what is mentioning, what is talking about the wind and then day and night? The Quranic units, the signs. So here, when it says, in this there are signs, in this what? In this, the wind, the mountain, in this? Or in this, the text? Remember, in the beginning, there was no text as we know now, like a book, you take it, here is the Quran. Actually, in Arabic, they call it mushaf. It's the codex. Which one is it? Is it the text, the words, or is it the coffee? It's simple, and it can be also misleading. In daily life, when I talk about coffee, no one says, you mean the word sound coffee. Everyone knows that I'm talking about the coffee out there. When it comes to the Quran, here, some people do say and said that it is talking about the Quran itself. But what is the Quran if I do not read it in relation to what it is talking about, what it is referring to? So some other scholars, and I think that makes more sense to me, take it as meaning both. Because the text is talking about it, about the winds and the rain and... Can we separate them? Can I separate the word coffee with the coffee? We wouldn't think about it, right? But very often, I'm talking about like Muslims, we tend to read the Quran and memorize it without even referring to the world out there. It's like talking about coffee but never even wondering what coffee is. It's not interesting, right? So we can't separate them, right? If I have a treasure map, and what is here, because it is like the Quran, like I know the Quran by heart, or I have the Quran, it has the answers to everything. Can have the answers to everything, it doesn't mean that I have the answer to everything. It's like if I have a map, let's say it's a treasure map. unless I use the map and I go and travel to the territories mapping for me, and I go and follow the signs. Have you ever did treasure hunting when you were kids? You go actually and look, and they make it difficult, so you have to climb. And if you sit there and say, I have the map, it doesn't mean anything. And it reminds me of a joke. Those who take Turkish class maybe have heard of Temel. So in Turkey, lots of jokes are made about Black Sea people. And this one typical Black Sea name is Temel. So Temel is traveling by sea. And something happened, an accident, his suitcase falls into the sea. Everyone is trying to, everyone is panicking and saying, please, don't worry and everything, but he's the coolest. He's doesn't seem worried at all. And he smiles and tells them, don't worry, the key's with me. But our situation is even worse than that, because I'm not even aware that it is a key, and I'm just holding onto the key and not using it. So the signs in the Quran as guides, they are like keys. And the key only works when you use it. And no one can use the key for anyone else. That's the secret. No one can taste coffee for me. No one can taste and enjoy God's compassion except me. Well, I can see someone enjoying it. However, it will never be like me tasting it and enjoying it. So reading the Quran is not simply repeating the words or rephrasing it into my own words. If it refers to something to reflect upon or to observe, unless I do what it is asking me to do, unless I follow the map, I'm not going to find anything. So, the Quran or the Quranic science reads the cosmos. What does it mean? It's not reading something alien to me. In these couple of verses we've seen, it's reading the season, it's reading day and night, it's reading rain, it's reading the food that I eat, the water that I drink. So it's reading or talking about or explaining or interpreting or voicing things that I live, something that are part of my life. And from the point of view of the speaker, from the point of view of the creator, he speaks as he creates, and he explains the purpose in his creation and demonstrates what he says through acts. I learned this first when I was doing my first PhD in physics. And the first time it was like, what does it mean? But the more I started thinking about it, the more it started making sense. And it makes sense, yes, I need God to speak to me. I mean, if there is a creator, if he created me, if he sends me here, then he needs to tell me why I'm here on earth. What am I doing? What is going on? And if he speaks to me only through scripture, in the beginning it was like, okay, if he speaks to me through scripture, it's enough. But it's not, because I wouldn't make sense of it. He needs to speak to me in a way that I understand. And believe me, we only understand through experiencing things. And the language, the verbal language, is only a small part. It looks like it's a big part of what's going on. However, if someone says, you know, I am very calm, I'm a very kind person, or this person is very calm. Let's say very kind, I care a lot about you, but this person never cares about me, maybe even harms me and anything. Which would I believe? We believe the action, not the word. The word only makes sense when it explains and highlights what I am doing. But actually, in our life, 80%, I don't know, I haven't searched it, but like a big portion of our life is what we live. And we express. Words are only there to express what we live. That's why they are only signs. They are signs. They only make sense to us because there is something I refer to. And so here, the Quranic words, the Quran says they are only signs. They are only signs, and from one point of view they are only signs, from another point of view they are signs. And in both ways I mean, when you read the Quran, it should make me look for something else. In that sense, that's why I'm saying it's only a sign. Like, don't spend your life, don't drown into the text itself without going outside. They are signs in the sense that if it is a sign, it means it's referring to something else. So what is it referring to? When I read the text with that awareness, then it becomes very different. And that sign refers me to, for instance, the food out there. It says, consider your food. And it says, the food also is a sign. Water is also a sign. So when I go there to the water, and it tells me how it's a sign. So how is it a sign? Or how do I learn how it is a sign? Through listening to the explanation. And let's take the same example, food as an example. The first step, it says here, to reflect on the way food, or let's say fruit, comes into being, because food goes through the kitchen, there is human interference. Let's make it simple and say just fruit. You can eat it directly, right? So the way it comes into being, it said reflect into the way it comes into being. How does it come into being? Does a fruit exist on its own? It exists in a tree, right? And the tree, does it exist on its own? It has to be rooted in earth. It has to receive sun and air. It has to receive rain and water. Is it enough? Is the sun all the year round the same? No, we have fruits at certain seasons. Seasons means the rotation of the earth around the sun, and it revolves around itself. The fact that it's tilted is also important in this. All the laws of chemistry and the laws of physics are involved in this. So actually, for a tiny fruit to exist, the whole universe has to be as it is right now. A fruit doesn't exist on its own. That's an illusion. We think things are separate. However, where do we separate here? We think this is the plastic, the bottle. But where do we separate it from the rest of the world? Can I cut here and there is a bottle existing in the void? Nothing exists in the void. None of us, nothing. Not a single atom can exist in the void. They are all interconnected with each other. They all exist in that web of interconnection. So the maker of one tiny fruit can only be the maker of the whole universe as it is right now. And it's not the universe just right now, it is the universe in time as well, because the fruit doesn't happen suddenly in an instant. So the whole universe is needed for one fruit. And also it's telling us that the maker of one fruit has to have control over the whole universe, knows everything what's going on, so knows how everything is interacting with everything else. And that's how the fruit becomes a sign, or like reflecting the attributes of the Creator. Through observing the way it says, consider how your food comes into existence, and it carries on telling us how it comes into existence. Through, if I really go and observe it, I come to the conclusion that this fruit, it looks like it exists on its own, but it doesn't. It says we have to, water has to come, the winds, the clouds, the earth, the seeds have to cleave, and this and that and this and that. So all these attributes, all this knowledge and control and power and this compassion, because at the end it's a gift that we enjoy, are all the attributes not of the fruit, but of whoever is making this fruit in this way. This is the first step of listening and interacting with food, in this example, as a sign, in the way the Qur'an describes it. The second step, this is not the end, the second step is to realize that the fruit is not something out there. Does it make sense?
I didn't hear the last word.
The second step is to realize that the fruit is not something out there. It looks like the fruit is sitting there, but the fruit is going, I'm interacting with it. When it's out there, I look at it, I say, oh, it looks nice. The hungrier I am, the more I can relate to it, right? And when I start eating it, that's also a way of reading it. When I start eating it, it tastes good. And the hungrier I am, the better it tastes. So actually, in the first step, I'm not realizing what I'm doing. I'm shortcutting my being involved with the fruit. It is as if it's out there. The second step is to realize that it's not out there, it's not separate from me, and that the best way to realize it is actually when you eat it. And you start tasting it, and you realize also, when you reflect about what we're eating, you realize that the taste is not coming from the fruit, because the more we eat, do we get more pleasure or less? Less.
Mm-hmm.
So if it was from the matter of the fruit, it should go increase proportionally. The more I eat, the better. It doesn't work like this, because there is one key factor here in my relationship with the fruit, is my hunger, my need for it. If I don't need it, it's not going to taste. If I'm really full, I don't even want to maybe even see it. But when I'm hungry, I'm very happy to see it, and even happier to eat it, right? So there is a factor here that is hunger, my need for it. It means I realize suddenly that I am related, connected to this fruit out there through something inside me, which is my need. And because of that need, I derive pleasure from eating it. And so what the Quran says, it explains that it is the merciful provider who causes me to derive pleasure from it, not the fruit itself. It says, we consider it a food, we send you with it for you to enjoy at the very end of the verse that I read before. So this way I realized that the fruit is a gift from God, a token of care, of love, of compassion, a sign of divine favor. telling me that whoever created me with this need, he didn't create me with this need so I am needy and vulnerable and miserable, but to enjoy, for enjoyment. So because of my needs, I can enjoy the gifts that are given to me. So hunger also becomes a sign. It's also a sign. It is the key that makes me realize that I am here, a guest that is being blessed with all these gifts. And the pleasure I get is also a sign. Remember, the Quran says everything is a sign. So the fruit is a sign. It's a gift. It's a sign of God's compassion. It's a token of love, a token of compassion. And the hunger is a sign, and the pleasure is a sign. The pleasure is a sign to the pleasures of paradise. The pleasure itself is temporary, but being a sign to the eternal, compassionate one, it gives me a more eternal, more lasting pleasure. And it's what we call spiritual pleasure. A pleasure that I get through the spirit, more than the pleasure that I get through eating. But of course, remember, it's not something that I imagine. The pleasure, it is so good. That is a sign to the pleasure that I get from being the guest, having this generous host, being looked after, being cared, being loved. That gives even more pleasure. You feel more appreciated, valuable, everything. That's what we need the most, all of us, is that compassion and love. And can you imagine? It's not only a friend or your parent or someone you like, but it's the creator who is the host, and you are such a special and honored guest. And the experience you feel when experiences that spiritual pleasure, the pleasure of being the special guest, is expressed in a verse in the Quran. It says, for them, for those who live or read or listen to the signs in this way, and I'm saying signs because both of them are the same. If I say coffee means drink the coffee as well. You know, if I say, leave you a note here, drink the coffee, does it make sense to just say, oh, Yamina said drink the coffee. She says drink the coffee. It's like the Quran said this and this, and I never go and drink the coffee. So here, it's both signs. For them, for those who don't just read the note, but actually go and drink and enjoy themselves, and are grateful, and know that the host is generous and compassionate and loving. For them, there is the glad tidings of happiness in the life of this world and in the life to come. So, through the two steps of reading and listening and tasting the signs, we become aware that the outer signs, the fruit, for instance, the fruit, are correlated to the inner signs. My hunger, pleasure, enjoyment. And it is because of this correlation between the outer signs and the inner ones, the inner signs, between the outer world and the inner world, that I can understand the sign, that I can make sense of them. They all meet in the inner world. And that's where I need to solve them, and that's where the Quran provides the keys and the guidance to solve them. It starts out there because it's always easier to separate, and we don't attend that level of self-awareness at the beginning. At the beginning, we live in a world where we think I exist, my existence is separate from everything else. And it is through observing the world out there as signs that slowly I start realizing that we are not so separate. first I say they are not so separate, then I say I'm not so separate either. So that connection between me and the rest of the world is very important, because that's why everything matters, because everything affects me in one way or the other, either through enjoyment or pleasure or through pain and suffering. And that's why the Quran says, in time we shall make them see our sign through what they perceive in the outer horizons and within their own selves, so that it will become clear to them that this revelation is indeed the truth. And here when it says we will make them see our signs out there and in themselves, and here is a literal translation of wa in Arabic. But wa in Arabic has many meanings, and it could be understood as and therefore the signs out there, and therefore the signs in themselves. Because the signs out there, we cannot fully read them and understand them until we internalize them. So because the first step is still, when we are in the first step, we're still stuck in the illusion that we're separate from the world. That's the Newtonian world. You know, everything is out there, everything is measurable, I am the observer. That's an illusion. It's not true. That's not how it works in real life. And that's because I'm not even aware how I'm connected to the rest of the world. I'm not even connected of myself, of my needs. And my needs, when I'm at that stage, looks like something I want to get rid of. It's something that I complain about. I don't realize that it is through my needs that I can enjoy everything. So actually my needs are not a liability, they are an asset. The second step is a step forward in self-awareness. The awareness that not only we are all interconnected, but I'm not an observer. In quantum physics, there's no observer. There are only participators. And we don't have to know quantum physics, believe me. Just sit and reflect and meditate, you will realize that we are not. So this self-awareness is actually the key to unlocking the signs in the universe. Because we see the outer world through the filter of the inner world. And that's why in many traditions, spirituality is about cleansing the inner world. And in Islamic tradition, that's tazkiyah, the purification of the self. Because I see everything through the lenses of the inner self. Unless it's clear and clean, the world out there is going to come as I will have a distorted, let's say, perception of the world. So ultimately, the key is the clearing, the cleansing, the purification of the self. And then you realize that the answers to our existential questions, they are revealed to me when I don't only ask, but also listen. Listen, read, understand the signs. And listening to the signs is not just putting the Qur'an on and listening to the Qur'an. It's actually, how do you say in English? They say don't talk the talk, but walk the walk. It's actually going and walking the walk. However, in the beginning it's hard because, we're not used to. It's going out of your zone of comfort. It's taking responsibility for everything. Every distortion is actually because of me. We don't like it. But eventually, it is the most exciting adventure you can have in the world. As a student, I used to travel with, when you study in England, Europe is very small, so you can go all over Europe in 1 week or two. So with some friends, we were traveling around, and at the end, one of my friends said, "Oh, Everywhere is the same, trees and people. And when you think about it, she's right. Because what makes the difference is that inner perception. So it doesn't mean that we're not going around, but when there is clarity in the inner world, it reflects to the outer world. Then everything, staying in the same place is exciting, going to a new place is exciting, everything is different. No one moment is the same as the next. If we remain stuck in the first step, then we fail to internalize the messages, the signs. And we fail also, the message of the Quran will never really unfold. So why does it matter? Because I may claim, if you're a Muslim, all Muslims will say, God is generous, Allah Kareem. But how, or does it matter if I myself live in a state of scarcity? Living in a mode of scarcity, in a scarcity mode, does not mean that I don't have anything. I could be rich, but I have the illusion that I have to take care of my future. The burden of my life is on me. So, am I going to share this with you? No way. This is for today, this is for tomorrow. I need them both. Actually, if you have one, I would like also. So what's the point in saying God is all compassionate, is all generous, when myself, what I live inside is this attitude of scarcity? And that's all an illusion, believe me. Because where is the future? Where is the past? Where is this morning? Of course, it looks like I have to take care of myself because I've been given this life, and I will surrender it back. Let's say I'm a Muslim and I believe in the life after death. At death, it will be taken from me. Is it true? Is it true? It looks like it's true, right? It's my life. At death, it will be taken. Where is yesterday? Where is last year? Where is all, if you're 20 now, see, well, most of you are quite young. If you're 20, right now, those 20 years, I'm not sitting right now with you. Right? So the moment when it's my last breath, when I'm leaving this world, it will be my last breath that I'm leaving. It won't be all of my life. Because right now, this evening is not here yet, tomorrow is not here yet, yesterday is not here. Only now is here, and this now is flowing. Flowing. The moment I talk about it, it's not there. So actually, to make all these plans about, yeah, we make plans, but there is a balance. Not with greed, not from a place of scarcity. Because right now, my life is taken care of. It's being taken care of. It's being given to me right now. Can I guarantee that I will be living in an hour? No. It's not in my hand. It's not in my control. My life was not given to me. Here you are, 80 years. No. It is given to us right now. We're receiving the blessing right now. And it's only to the extent that I live that and I feel it's exhilarating, it's feel the joy of being given life and whatever, all the gifts that come with life right now, then it's very easy to share. Whoever gave me this will give more. Look at that. She has more. It's coming. Why should I worry about the future when I don't know even what's going on, what's going to happen in the future? It doesn't mean that I go around wasting, but if someone needs it more than me right now, I have no hesitation because I am at ease. I know that when we need it, it is given. It is given all the time. And there is this illusion that this is my life, I die, this is hereafter start. It's not true. Each moment is right now living. So creation flows in and out. So right now I'm building the creation. It's not linear. It's not linear. That's the illusion, an illusion when I don't stop and reflect on what's going on. So self-awareness is the key. Otherwise, I will claim everything, but it won't solve anything into my life unless I live. That's why believing in the generous is is to actually reflect it into your life. How? Because he's the generous, it's easy to be generous. If he's loving, it's easy to be loving. However, if he's loving out there, it's just an abstract concept that I heard, it's not something that I experienced, then it won't change my life, it won't transform my life. So I may claim that God is loving, God is peace, God is loving, wadud, He's peace, salam, He's forgiving, ghafur. But my own self, I'm full of fear, full of anger, I may not be able to forgive anyone, I remember things from 20 years, how do I know? You talk about it and I get excited again and angry all over again. So what's the point in learning that God is loving if I can't reflect the love in my life, because I don't see the love in others. I just talk about it. Because I don't understand that anger and fear are also signs. Do you remember anger and pleasure and enjoyment were signs? Anger and fear are also signs. And signs means that they are messengers coming from the Creator with messages for me. Because I think that when anger comes, I think I am angry and I have to act on angrily. But if I am at the second stage, and there are even more stages, but at least when I get to that second stage of self-awareness, I start reading the signs with awareness, and when anger comes, then I say, welcome, what do you have to teach me? Because it is coming, it says everything is a sign, everything is bringing a message of compassion, and they're teaching me something. They are teachers of wisdom, they're teaching me too. Do we ever stop and listen to our anger and fear? Like, I'm not even aware, I can't even, how do you say, I'm not even aware that anger came to me. I just say, I am angry, and that's it. So I can't stop and think and listen and answer. I just react. That's why self-awareness is very important. And when you look at in the Islamic tradition, people who lived the Qur'an, it says about the Prophet ﷺ, he was the living Qur'an. That's very important. What's the point in having the Qur'an if you don't know what it's talking about, or if I impose my own understanding on it rather than following what it is teaching me? They saw even anger and fear, even hunger and pleasure and joy as signs carrying messages about the beautiful attributes of God, about compassion, about wisdom. And I just want to, I'm not going to go into the details of all how we read the signs, especially like inner signs. And the inner signs are always in interaction, remember, in correlation with outer signs. But I want to finish with a poem from Mawlana Jalaluddin Muhammad al-Rumi, known as Rumi. And it's called The Guest House. And just to see how this man interacted, saw the signs. So he says, this human being is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, So momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. All joy, depression, meanness, momentary awareness. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house, empty it of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. Each guest, sorrows, grief, sadness, depression, joy, meanness, treat all of them honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So this is the reading of the signs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now it's the question and answer time. So please feel free to ask your questions.
If you don't have questions, we can go and taste the signs. Yes?
Yeah. How do you know what the signs mean? That last quote I read with the feelings, you know, and how do you interpret them?
Oh, that's a long. There is one. Well, in the Quran there are lots of stories of the prophets, of the messengers of God, and usually you will find different pieces, parts of the story of one prophet in different chapters of the Quran. But there is one story that you can find from beginning to end into the same chapter, named after the name of the prophets, and that's called the chapter of Joseph, Yusuf, peace be upon him. And there it gives you a hint, or it's like the story is a story that takes the audience by the hand, together going with Yusuf. So Yusuf goes through up and downs. He is at home, a beloved son. His brothers are jealous. They sent him in. They throw him into a well. Then he's taken as a slave, sold as a slave. He found himself in a palace, then in a prison, then in a very high position. So through all these up and downs, Joseph is always calm, always living in that awareness of the divine, that awareness that the compassionate Creator is taking care of him. And what the Quran teaches there is each time it gives us a description of what is going on, and then right after it gives a description of what the inner meaning of what's going on actually means, which is the reading of the signs. And it says that God has given Joseph the gift of interpreting dreams and events. Why? Because he was given wisdom. So actually, a short answer would be, you will have to acquire wisdom. But wisdom is not something that I get myself, it's something that is given to us. And it's given to those who, it says it was given to Joseph because he was a muhsin. And a muhsin is someone who lives in the awareness that whatever is happening is a sign, that whatever is happening is a guest from beyond, is a teacher from beyond, that nothing is happening without any purpose or without any compassion and wisdom and meaning. So to keep that faith that whatever is happening has a meaning is the precursor, the pre-requirement for receiving wisdom. For a long time, I used to rationally think that if only I knew the wisdom in this, then I would surrender and say, yes, it's coming with a meaning and a wisdom. Until I realized that was cheating. Or just like, how to say, it was a delusion. It was like saying, I close my eyes and say, when the light is on, I will open my eyes. How would I know when the light is on if I keep my eyes closed? So it is about keeping your heart open, because it's the heart that will receive the wisdom. And wisdom and the compassion is always there. It is given to all when the heart is open. And the heart is open when it is open to the possibility that there is meaning and wisdom and compassion in everything that happens, even when it looks bad to me, when it is unwanted. For instance, Joseph finding himself in a well, or being sold as a slave, or being put in prison for no crime. So it looks like this is a very bad, like, what's the wisdom in this? There can't be wisdom. He did not say that. He was open to the possibility that there is wisdom even in this. And then he could see the wisdom, because the wisdom was taught to him. So being open to that possibility that they are guests. And so they are teachers. And then I say, what are they teaching me? Because usually what we ask, especially these questions, happen when something we don't like happen. When things that we like happen, we don't even ask questions. So when something unwanted happens, when I say, why is it happening? Is this really a question? Is this really a question? No, right? It is only an objection. I mean, it should not have happened. Why did it happen? But having an open heart, being open to the possibility that there is something that I don't understand, and mind you, what I know is very limited. I don't even know what's behind this wall. I don't even know what's going on 10 minutes, what's going to happen 10 minutes later, a few minutes later. So the more self-aware, the more I know that I'm very limited. I can't claim just because I don't like it. It doesn't mean that it has no good in it. There is no good in it. When I become open to that possibility, I don't ask the same question. I ask, what is the wisdom in it? Is there any wisdom? Where is it? And when I'm open to that possibility, I start seeing it. And many of you, at least a few years later, we see the good in things. But the more aware we are, the more, it won't be few years, be few weeks, few months, few weeks, few days, few hours, few minutes on the spot. Like Joseph, on the spot he could see it. And in the Qur'an, for instance, when it says, he was taken from prison to become the right man of the king of Egypt. Right? When he went there, the king said, we establish you now, we give you a good position. Right after it says, God says, we established you and gave you this position. It's not the king. Why would the king take him from prison there? Because everything, when you are open to that possibilities, remember everything is flowing, creation is being created right now, life is coming into being right now. Go and read quantum physics, things are always coming into being. Then there is the possibility endless possibilities are possible. While Joseph is in prison, what happened? The king has a dream. And the dream is related to something in the world. 7 days, 7 years there will be abundance, and then 7 days of drought. So the whole universe is collaborating for Yusuf to take that position. So when the king says, we gave you this position, is it true? Right after, the Quran says, God gave you this position. The king had no control over the 7 years of abundance and the 7 years of drought. And of course, Joseph wanted to leave prison before. Had he left prison before, he would be again a slave in the palace. But he was taken out at the right time, the right moment. The whole universe was like, how would you say, collaborating for him to take that position. So either you say the universe itself is collaborating, or the Creator, in his wisdom and compassion, is giving that position to Yusuf for a particular purpose, because he knew he was also given the knowledge of how to store food, and so it was like it was a mercy for all the people in the region. Otherwise, they would have died of hunger if he didn't know the interpretation of the dream. So it's about being open to the wisdom.
I know you said that it might sound a little bit theoretical, but I'd like to hear what you think about when you say that even my emotions are not me, they're guests that I entertain or deal with in a certain way. So what am I made of? I mean, I used to think all my life that my emotions are an essential part of who I am. And that changes everything, because then you're not so much affected by them directly. You have the ability to stand away from them and deal with them in a certain way or another. So, I mean, even theoretically speaking, what am I made of? What is that?
First, theoretically speaking, can we see how I'm not my emotions? I can let go of them. I can decide that I'm not going to be angry anymore. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard in practice, of course, but yes,
but
I can see what you mean there. Yeah. So what am I? Who's? I mean, undefined.
Remember, who am I is an existential question, and the answer is also an existential answer. So I have an answer for myself, but that answer is, you're asking me, you've never seen coffee, you're asking me to describe coffee for you. The answer is something that I live. So the answer, what I'm telling you here is how the Quran points, guides us to the answer. But answers are something, it's not about talking it, it's about walking it.
Okay. So you think you get to the answer by doing exactly that?
By reflecting.
Separating yourself from your feelings or whatever.
That's only a small part of it.
Okay.
Like the journey, the seeking the answer is a journey that you live. Every day is coming, it gets clearer and clearer. You get answers from different aspects, and every time it feels like new. And it's all about even like one way of seeing, like the 5 daily prayers and everything. It's all about sustaining that self-awareness. Of course, I can pray without awareness, but it is supposed to be there to sustain that self-awareness, because without that self-awareness, that is who I am. There is a me who thinks, there is a me who feels, And there is a me who is aware of all this. If I intend to be aware, even when you are angry, even when you are talking with others, it's like there is something that is conscious of all what's going on. What is that? The more you reflect, as it is taught in the Qur'an, and as the Prophet ﷺ used to do and teach the companions at night, and that's why there is that ayah that says those who reflect while they are standing, sitting, sleeping, lying, right? They reflect in all situations. The more I start identifying with that thing that I can't talk about because it's something that you live, you experience. Whatever we call it, awareness and things, but these are just names, of course, words. The more we identify, the less we identify with our bodies, with the color of our skin, with the less and less we identify with that. Then the more this becomes like a vessel. Look at the body. Lots of people, just like you said, we identify with our emotions. We can identify with our bodies, but weren't we all tiny babies? And then toddlers and their kids? What happened to those bodies? The body is always changing. And just because, you all can see me, I can't see myself unless I look there. And have you ever seen your face? This is lesson 1 in Sufism. Have you ever seen your face? Only in a mirror, right? And in a mirror, can you see my face as you see it? No, I only see the reflection. Physicists, reflection is, a symmetry of it, but it is not it. I can only see the reflection, and the reflection not as you see it. It's inversed. So I'm not, the body changes, and I'm not my body. It is part of who I am, but it is not me, body equals me. But I could identify with it, and people do identify with it, and discrimination among people, and lots of, a big part of our cultures may be based on how we look and the color of our skins and everything, but is it who we are? And so it's the same with emotions. And then you go, and this is the purification, until you come to something that is aware of all those. That's something, and you can say at the end, but what is it? Yeah, the best metaphor that I can use, that has been widely used in the Islamic tradition, is the metaphor of the mirror. What you see in the mirror is not the mirror, right? The mirror is only reflecting something else. So we only reflect whatever is given to us. Life is not mine, right? If you have any doubt, when you hear about when I leave the world, you will know that it is not mine. And I can decide when I will leave this world. It is on me, reflected on me. So right now, I am being a mirror to life. What is that mirroring? That is me. It's something to reflect upon. It's not something to understand. It's something that you are going to feel, something that you are going to experience. It's more than feeling. Feeling is just part of it. Yes. Oh, there was someone else before. Sorry.
I was late, so I apologize if you talk about my question, but I want to ask you that when bad feeling or negative feelings come to our hearts and destabilize the peace of heart, in your opinion, what is the best way to react to those bad feelings, negative feelings, and to reach the peace in heart again? Do you see what I mean? I want to ask, in your opinion, what is the best way to react to those bad feelings actually? connection without sinking deeper and deeper into negativity?
This is going to change from situation to situation on what's going on that is
I mean, think about anger, think about hate, extreme, or
there are different ways of approaching it. All of them are about questioning. The Quran is all about teaching us how to ask the right questions, the questions that lead to answer. And one of the questions is, usually with anger especially, we think that something out there or someone out there made me angry. And you can start in a very simple way. If you want to learn more, this is what we do actually in our retreats. We take one particular subject, and that's what we do the whole weekend, because it's about something that everyone has to sit and actually experience for themselves, not only about explanation. So when I say someone, let's say someone, usually, but it could be something, made me angry, the first thing I could ask, the first thing that I can intend, something that nurture my self-awareness is it true? Is it true that he's making me angry? And of course, usually people say, of course, like he did this and this and that. Yeah. And one thing that I learned from reading commentaries on the Quran, but usually I am more into Nursi's commentary, but more Sufi kind. People who did not sit and start, verse 1 means this, verse 2 means this, like academic formal commentaries. People who actually walked the walk, people who actually felt the need for the answers and actually wrote the answers to share with us how they solved, how they found their answers. And so they are not saying this is the answer. This is how I, like this poem is, Rumi's Mesnewi is a kind of commentary on the Quran, right? To me, that's a genuine commentary. The other commentaries are, how can you comment on something that you never experienced? How can you talk about coffee if you never drank coffee? And of course, when someone is talking about coffee, some will say, oh, when I think of coffee, I think when I was young, all the families coming together. The other ones say, oh, I don't like the smell. It doesn't matter. They are all something about genuinely related to interacting with coffee. So they give me clues of how to walk my walk, how to see. So here, there is something, there are facts and perception. Let's say perception. Okay. So when I say, maybe you don't, but like, one is fact, one is perception. This is one of the first rules, is when I say, he made me angry, and I say, okay, just a second, what did he do? Let's say he said, oh, Yamina, you are stupid, okay? And I got very angry. So I say he made me angry. So he said, you are stupid. Is it a fact or a perception? He said, you are angry, you are stupid is a fact. He made me angry. Is it a fact or a perception? Is it possible for someone to hear this and say, if you think so, I mean, it's up to you. I mean, it's not the best thing to hear, but I mean, I don't get angry the whole week and, remember it after 20 years. Because I say, okay, I don't know what his problem is. If he wants to talk about it, I'm open to talk, but it's not my problem. Why should I get angry about it, right? If I'm stupid, that's the fact. If I'm not, then, okay? So that's a perception. He made me angry. And when someone says you are stupid, that's the fact. Do I have a choice to get angry or not to get angry? Yes, but usually, because I'm not aware, because I'm used to whenever someone says something that I don't like, I just react and I get angry. I say I have no choice. He made me angry. Can't someone take me and make me angry? Unless I decide myself? Unless I say, but he has humiliated me, for instance. He has, what else can you say? Belittled me. He is belittling fact or perception? Fact or perception? Perception. Is humiliating me fact or perception? He may have the intention to belittle me and humiliate me. It does not make it a fact. I may not perceive it that way. Or I perceive it, I understand that this is intention, and I still choose not to react with anger. Then wisdom starts. When I start, and then it requires awareness. When I intend to, is it a fact? And of course, that's why the Quran says when you are the only one who harms yourself. No one harms you. Because I harm myself when these two spheres, perception and facts, become one in my world. But the more aware I am, the more I can differentiate between them. In the beginning, I will have to stop and make the difference until it becomes my way of seeing the world. That clarity that comes with nurturing that awareness, it becomes like this is a fact and this is my perception. And I choose, do I like my perception? Does it enhance my life? Does it increase my gratitude? Does it increase my peace my inner peace? My interacting with others in a way that I enjoy? If it does, then go ahead, choose it. If it doesn't, then can I choose not to get angry? I may, right? That's how it starts, with differentiating. Basically, fact is what God creates, is the signs. Perception is my misreading, because I never learned the meaning, how to read the signs. Then I read them by default. I'm assuming. And assumption and conjecture, dhann, it says in the Quran, that's your own. It won't lead you anywhere. So I learn to question my assumptions about the world. And that's why it says, ask God. And one of the first things that he teaches is it what is, or is it what you think is? So at least just a guide, starting point, inshallah. There was someone here?
So you highlight the importance of self-awareness. In psychology, usually they link self-awareness with selfishness. Like when children become aware of their self, they also become selfish because they separate themselves from others. I can understand that true self-awareness would not lead to selfishness, but in that fact you can also somehow feel selfishness. So how would we prevent ourselves from that feeling?
I feel right now that it's probably the term awareness, and I was saying before that it's because I couldn't find another term. So there, it's self-awareness of, for instance, first the body, and I exist, I'm in the world, right? But here we're not talking about that kind of awareness. We're talking about an awareness, for instance, it is the opposite of, in some sense, it's realizing that I am not a separate from the rest of the world. I'm actually connected to every one of us. And usually we're not aware of it until, if anything happens to any one of us now, all of us want to help, we feel the empathy. How? Because we are connected, whether we are, let's say, not aware, so shall I use conscious of it? But something, that consciousness that of my needs, my need for the rest of the world, of my vulnerability. Actually, the selflessness comes at the beginning because I'm not aware of my vulnerability, or it is, even when we grow, I don't want to see it because I don't know what to do with it, because I don't know its meaning, because I don't know that it is something good, because I don't know that it is my best asset, because I'm not aware that it is because I am needy that I'm different from a stone. Stone doesn't have many needs, right? As long as the atoms are still moving, it's still a stone. It doesn't have many needs, but do we want to be like a stone? What makes us human, what makes our life higher, is the fact that we have more needs. When I don't have that consciousness, need is something to get rid of, something negative, something that you don't want to show to others. And need doesn't mean only for food, or need for everything. Like I don't want to show that I don't know this or don't know that. I don't know anyway. Whether I show it or not, whether I pretend I know or not, what I know is very little. What I don't know is so much. What I'm talking about, awareness, is what I don't even know that I don't know. So it's not about the child's awareness. There is, when we talk about knowledge, we think there are things we know and things we don't know, right? So I know a little bit, and most of it I don't know. There is even more that I don't know. I don't even know that I don't know. And that's what this consciousness is about. So it's different. It's just not realizing who you are. It's beyond the physical being, beyond emotions, beyond that. Go, go, go. And I can't, there aren't even words. I think Rumi has a nice poem when he says, if you can use words, it means you didn't get the point. Like, if you can explain this with words, then I know that you didn't go there. You still didn't go into that place beyond words. It's like, can you explain being in love to someone who's never been in love? You can try to compare to, but it will never mean anything unless that person experiences that themselves. They don't even know that they don't know until they actually live it, experience it. Sorry, there was some...
You're probably going to hate my question. I hate my question. So everything you said is beautifully put, and I truly believe in it. But you're talking about experiencing and reflecting on, but does that mean that it's rational? Like, my demon is like always trying to rationalize everything, right? How do I know it's not like wishful thinking? How do I know it's true? Because I am ready to receive the answer. I am receiving the answer. That's why now I see the wisdom of it. How do I know that this is actually the wisdom of it? That God is showing me a sign? Or it's me like wanting to believe that there is a wisdom of it? Like, there's always like a battle inside of me. And you're right, every time it's new, you learn more about things and you evolve and your faith evolves, but this battle hasn't stopped. And I don't know if it will ever stop, but there's always someone trying to rationalize everything and not like, just giving to like experiencing and living. Here's my question.
So when we talked about wisdom, like being open to the possibility that it has a meaning, that wisdom is given, and it is not something that I imagine. although, mind you, imagination is also a tool. So imagination is, we use it in a way like, if I imagine it, then it doesn't have a value. Because we all have been educated in how to use our reason and intellect. But do you think we were given imagination for nothing? In spirituality, you learn how to educate your imagination as well. So you are not getting the wisdom only through reason, but also through emotions and through imagination. And we do use imagination, but we are not aware that we use it. If whoever made this building was a plan first, right? Before it was a plan, it was in the imagination of the architect. First he was thinking, they need this for what, and this, and he started imagining. Had he not had imagination, he wouldn't have been able to produce this. And if you, I don't know if you use group theory in cosmology, but in theoretical physics you use group theory, and there you have many, many dimensions, like worlds where you have 11 dimensions. And there, people who are not visual, can't use that. No one teaches you how to use your imagination. But who becomes a successful physicist? Those who have an inclination to use their imagination well. And we call it being creative. However, if you go in the Sufi tradition, you learn how to use, to educate your imagination. So imagination doesn't mean that I am making it up, necessarily, not necessarily. That when something new, when we talk about creativity, new idea comes in, it comes in the mirror of imagination first. Then I start making sense of it. So actually rationalizing is the last step. So just because I'm open to the wisdom doesn't mean that I'm making it up. I'm also learning the language. I'm learning, it's a language, the language of science. It's an education. You go and educate yourself and learn how to start. You learn the ABC first. That's one thing. The second one is we learn through contrast. So the fact that you feel this is not a bad thing, because it is through that contrast that it's almost like we're pushed to seek something new and different and seek answers. The questions come through the contrast. We couldn't develop new horizons unless we came to somewhere where it was like a wall and I feel like it's not enough and I want to know more. So that's one thing. The rationalizing is often used in a detrimental way. Just because you rationalize doesn't mean that that is the best thing to do. Remember when I said fact versus perception? Why? When I asked the question, everyone was clear about what was perception, what was fact. Why in my daily life these two are confused? Because I have stories. I rationalize my perceptions. And we are so good at rationalizing. And we all get education. And rationalizing is not always, it is a tool, but just because I have a tool doesn't mean I can use the tool for everything. Someone was saying about someone who uses alternative medicine, and he was saying how antibiotics is like the only tool for doctors, because that's the only thing they know. So if you bring a baby, they will give you. He said if you have only a hammer, everything is a nail. So is it really a nail, or is it because I want to use my hammer everywhere? So rationalizing is good, but it has its limitations. Should we go and test the signs out there? The blessings, the gifts, inshallah.
Just a quick comment to that question. Sorry about that. Is it possible to also add a final point, which is you can confirm that what you went through and receiving the wisdom or whatever being okay by evaluating your state before and after?
Definitely. Actually,
So if I get to a better state, that is a confirmation of the fact that it's not imagination.
That's a very good point. Actually, when you are on the path, if you keep evaluating, and it's called muhasaba, and one of the scholars of Islam used to do it so very often that he's known as muhasabi. If you've heard of a scholar called muhasabi, it's not his real name, it's because he used to evaluate. And yeah, it is very strongly recommended. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
So we have some science to discover. Sorry for YouTube.
Yes, except for the moment, let me ask if there